I think enters a new phase now where Trump is really saying, criticize me and you're gone, and that's extremely alarming. Before it was sort of, more sub rosa, more kind of, but it wasn't this actually overt, dictatorial things he said on the plane on the way back when he said, maybe, he's been very critical, people have been very critical of me. I mean, maybe they should have their licenses cancelled, I mean, this is a new low.
Well, after a week that has been dominated by President Trump's state visit to the UK, I'm joined by nobody better than Tina Brown, CBE, journalist, magazine author, and royal watcher, and also the driving force behind Truth Tellers, the annual summit on investigative journalism, inspired by her husband, Harry Evans. Hello to you, Tina.
Hi, Adam. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, these state visits, as Donald Trump said, historic. He hopes he's the only president who ever does the double. What's your verdict on it? How do you think it went?
Look, I think it was a great success. I mean, before Trump left, he kept talking about the pictures. You're going to get some great pictures. This was all about giving Trump the great pictures, and all the planning sort of went into that. I mean, like the carriage ride, even though the public was banned, from Windsor Great Park, he still had to have his golden carriage ride. The massive sort of mixed military mixer, as it were, of that martial parade, because Trump is like all kind of dictator wannabes, is obsessed with with big military parades. And actually, what's quite interesting about this trip is that Windsor Castle actually is a fortress. It's not like Buckingham Palace, which might really appeal a bit more with its more overt bling, as it were, to Trump. But it's sort of a fortress, which is rather a good mood, essentially, for the much more bellicose second term of Trump. And I think a huge difference is that, I mean, last time, really, Trump was regarded as a kind of comical aberration in the political sort of, life of the United States. There's no one who thinks that he's a comical political aberration now. Now we see he is a huge, massive world influence. He's got everybody on the back foot, everybody in a crouch position. So I think for the royals, it was sort of a much more important visit, really, for Britain than it was almost than last time, when it was something of a kind of, let's just give the guy his pageantry. What a hoot.
Yeah, well, you've used the word of a would-be dictator. I mean, it seems quite a lot of people in America are talking about Donald Trump quite openly now as someone who has kind of kingly ambitions, dynastic ambitions. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite fun to see the sort of the fake king sort of making, having to kind of confront the real one. There's no doubt that Trump is getting more kingly by the minute. In fact, it's rather appropriate, perhaps, that King Henry VIII's armor was at Windsor Castle, because it's rather they get more like each other every day, from the swollen ankles to the germophobia. But no, I mean, Trump. I mean, the executive orders that Trump has put out day after day, as it were, without any pushback at all from Congress, just takes him more and more towards, that autocratic sort of kingly notion. And of course, on July the 5th, there was a huge No King's Day demonstration in the US, in every state in America, really, that made that point.
He seemed to be, though, at least towards Britain, to be on his best behavior. He didn't cause the usual kind of outspoken embarrassments for either the king or, more particularly, for the prime minister. Why
No,
was
actually,
that?
well, actually, and also even last time, they genuinely said afterwards he was an incredibly charming guest. I mean, there is definitely, a kind of two faces of Donald Trump when he wants. I mean, he can be, and I know because I've met him and found him so, to be incredibly charming, amusing, sort of, a bit of a kind of sort of appealing buccaneer, if you like. But no, he can be enormously charming and also very undemanding, apparently, in this visit. I mean, there's been lots of hideous kind of state visits with people like, Ceausescu, who the Queen disliked so much that she sort of hid from him in the bushes the next day. But, Trump and Melania actually were kind of pretty undemanding guests, and they did everything they were asked to do, and were very, very, very charming. So he has got an ability to do that, Trump, which of course is one of the reasons why he's so effective, because you're not effective unless you have that charm, and he does have it.
Now, there's also an awful lot of talk about the special relationship, which is sometimes viewed as something that only matters to the British or isn't really there. I mean, Donald Trump actually seems to believe in it.
Well, it is one of those ironic things, going back to the Gilded Age when they, however rich they were, they did want the validation of the British aristocracy, which is why they kept marrying into it. The fact is that for Trump, no amount of cryptocurrency can bring him what, Windsor Castle and Buckingham Palace can bring him. And he's always been a man who craved, the validation of, as it were, the elite circle, and he never got it in America. So it's the ultimate elite circle in his mind, the British royal family. It can't be bought. There is no, quote, deal to be had with them. And so he's sort of a bit in awe of it. And it's an interesting Achilles heel he has. He just feels genuine awe for the British royal family and for what it represents. So yes, I mean, people talk about his Scottish history and all that. I don't know really whether it's that so much as the sense that, this is the most elite circle. Those pictures he kept saying of, him standing next to the King of England, he can't buy it, literally. And so he loves it.
And for royal watchers, much interest in the fact that he talked about the king's son in the singular.
Really? Well, yes, I guess so. I mean, he knows that Harry is out of favour, and I guess he felt that was the sort of most tactful way of dealing with it. Harry has been and gone. It's all about William now, and Trump will always be much more interested in the person who comes next, who's going to be the one in power. He was very enchanted with Princess Catherine. I mean, he was absolutely, he loves beautiful women, and he really thought he was stunned by Kate.
Also, will he be relieved by the fact that the whole Epstein business didn't get anywhere, really? He seemed ready to brush aside a question about Peter Mandelson, saying he didn't know him, which, as a music, in the Oval Office.
Yeah, that was the ultimate sort of, et tu, Brute, to say that about someone you literally just had a meeting with. Actually, I'm told that he was livid about the whole Epstein thing raising its head. He was very irritated indeed that Keir Starmer sort of, in his mind, chose that moment to fire Peter Mandelson over Epstein, which brought that whole, unquenchable sort of nightmare saga back. Because it has been, the one thing, the one issue that he simply cannot sort of, do his usual reality show producing of, let's create the next topic, the next topic, the next topic. I like to think of it as Orange Lotus, his ability to sort of produce a new show, a new show, a new show. The Epstein sort of fury amongst his base just doesn't go away. And he just sort of begun to kind of quell it somewhat, still there boiling away, and indeed keeps erupting. But then he's got pictures of him and Epstein projected on, Windsor Castle, and Peter Mandelson, is fired because of it. So that was actually a very irritating thing to Trump. And I'm told he was pretty furious about that. But he didn't let it show that night and over the 2 days, and managed to brush it off. But it remains a huge running sore for Trump.
I mean, how much of a threat is it to him, or do we just know that he was friends with this guy? And of course, we know about his own behaviour towards women.
Well, truth to tell, I mean, we don't really know, because they've now gone full on sort of telling absolute sort of lies really about the Epstein files. I mean, just yesterday, Kash Patel was saying, there's no evidence at all that Epstein trafficked women to other people sort of than himself. I mean, it's like, what? I mean, do you mean to say we disbelieve every one of the victims that said he did? That was kind of a real gobsmacker, I think. I mean, they're walking the Epstein himself back now in what he actually did. That having spent all those years demonizing, everything about Epstein, for his own political gain, as it were, on the campaign circuit. Now it's like we're all downplaying. He's downplaying Epstein. Everything Epstein did is being downplayed. And of course, Ghislaine, his accomplice, was moved to a much less, unpleasant prison. on the basis that she would now talk to the Attorney General and again spouted absolute kind of frankly lies. I mean, she was asked by the Attorney General about sums of money that had gone into her bank account from Epstein, and she was literally saying, like, oh yes, $18 million. Not sure what that was for. I can't, quite remember. Oh, the $9 million that did come. Not sure. Maybe that was to do with a real estate deal. I mean, it was extraordinary, and there was no sort of aggressive follow-up as there would have been in anybody else who was being interrogated.
So you think this could still go further and do more damage?
I do actually, yes, because I don't think we fully know enough, and the story is too good, too juicy, too divisive, too kind of exciting to people to let go of. Unfortunately, it's easy juice, as it were, and I don't think it's going to go away. No, I think it will continue to haunt Trump. Whether it will do more than that, I don't know. But in some ways, Epstein has become his Russia that he used to go on about. Now he's got Epstein, and it makes him insane that he can't just simply get rid of it.
One of the things that he also avoided talking about was a famous MAGA talking point, which is criticizing the UK on the matter of freedom of speech. Do you feel that was because he knows in his heart of hearts that he is and his supporters are clamping down on freedom of speech in the United States?
Well, I mean, he'd have a hard time talking about free speech at this particular moment. I think he does know it's a very, very touchy subject for as far as Keir Starmer's concerned. He would know that was going to have real. If he said anything about that publicly, he was going to get massive pushback from Keir. Otherwise, Keir would look like absolutely a wet blanket. So, my sense is that he would know, keep away from that. And of course, this week we've seen this appalling situation with the comedian Jimmy Kimmel, where his extremely anodyne comments, frankly, about Charlie Kirk have got him suspended from his late night talk show, and people are absolutely outraged by it. I mean, this is the FCC head Brendan Carr essentially bullying him, bullying ABC to drop him, and this is a new phenomenon. I mean, this is we have not seen this before. We've never seen a head of the FCC taking individual content and made a comment. You can do this the easy way or the hard way. I mean, that is gangster talk. And isn't actually going over with quite a lot of Republicans too, because it is such an outright naked free speech crackdown. And I think enters a new phase now where Trump is really saying, criticize me and you're gone, and that's extremely alarming. Before it was sort of, more sub rosa, more kind of, but it wasn't this actually overt, dictatorial things he said on the plane on the way back when he said, maybe, he's been very critical, people have been very critical of me. I mean, maybe they should have their licenses cancelled, I mean, this is a new low.
And the point is, of course, that the FCC and indeed Donald Trump, I mean, they have regulatory power, and so they can affect the business choices of America's news organizations.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the networks are absolutely beholden to him, as he likes to now point out. And we're now seeing the complete sort of magarization of the media in a very, very short space of time. We've seen ABC again cravenly paying out $16 million to Trump to settle his suit against George Stephanopoulos, one of his morning hosts, who made a slip and referred to kind of rape instead of sexual assault regarding Trump's case with E.G. and Carroll, but which many libel lawyers thought could have been won. But ABC didn't want to fight that case. We've seen the dropping of Stephen Colbert soon. I mean, he's going to work out his contract, but essentially after Colbert criticized that decision, of his own bosses who paid another $16 million out so that their merger really could go through with Paramount. He criticized them for that, and his show is soon going to be done. I mean, you have Musk owning Twitter, which is now X, the biggest media platform ever. You've got Larry Ellison of Oracle now sort of clearly are going to be taking over TikTok. I mean, this is really a complete magarization. And then, of course, you've got Jeff Bezos at the Washington Post, who sort of had a head transplant in the second term, and banned the op-ed page from running a piece endorsing Kamala Harris. I mean, it's been one thing after another, and what's quite interesting about it is, I mean, this is the sort of direction that Garry Kasparov, the great Russian chess master, was saying last night. It makes me feel at home in Russia because Putin. This is how Putin operated, but actually he did it slower. I mean, the first 3 years of Putin was sort of a sort of gradual sort of squeezing of the press, and then it accelerated. And now, if you do a negative tweet about Putin, you're likely to go to prison for 10 years. So. It's a sort of very, very bad downward slant with the media, and soon it's going to be very, very difficult for people to fight back. So, I mean, how the media now addresses this new era is becoming a huge crisis in America, because if people keep feeling that, in the end, you're only as brave as a journalist as your bosses allow you to be, right? I mean, if you can't stay on the air or stay published because your bosses say, absolutely not, we're not going to do it, we're not going to take any risks, we're not going to offend Trump, you can't say it, you can't write it. I mean, you can't. You're done. So you've got to go off and do, I have a Substack, Fresh Hell, and I must say I'm very happy to have one, because I'm sort of accountable to myself. But you're going to see even more of a collapse of the already sort of increasingly threadbare American media, which is, economically weak with the digital sort of disruption. Now we've got this new disruption. And, we've had all this kind of, quote, cancel culture throughout, for years, as it were, under the sort of liberal tyrannies. But this cancel culture is a lot more scary, because it's not just being kicked off your show or losing your job or, losing your book contract, which was bad enough. Now it's like, we've got the whole power of the federal government against the network, and that's a much more alarming state of affairs to be in.
And he's taken on a lot of people. I mean, he's got a multi-billion-dollar suit against the New York Times, but he's also got a multi-billion-dollar suit against the Wall Street Journal, which belongs to Rupert Murdoch, who also runs Fox News. So what's going on there?
Well, I know, who would have thought that we would be now depending on Rupert Murdoch to be a defender of freedom of the press. But actually, I have a few hopes for that one, because I do think that Rupert is too old, ornery, and powerful to be pushed around by Trump, really. And, he stood by his editor so far in the publishing of the famous Epstein birthday book letter, in which there is a, sort of leering drawing by Trump of a sort of naked woman, and, with a sort of his signature squiggled over her sort of pubic area, which is just the sort of typical kind of, horny, kind of atmosphere of the entire birthday book, quite frankly, about women in general. But it enraged Trump, because, of course, it directly linked him to Epstein in terms of him being a friend who perhaps was completely complicit in these kind of, sexual, predations against women. So he's absolutely enraged about that. But I don't see Murdoch backing down on that. I really don't. So that could be a glorious sort of antler locking of two kind of old, beasts of the field.
And just finally, what about yourself? You're in New York. Do you feel safe or under threat in New York?
I don't feel under threat, but I think I know so many journalists who are very, very nervous and depressed, and I know many journalists whose really good revelatory investigative journalism pieces are dying on the vine and not getting published. I know people who can't get books published. In the first Trump era, you saw a rash of kind of anti-Trump books. They were all bestsellers. You're not seeing them now. I mean, publishers are not publishing those books, or they're not contracting to publish those books, because they don't want the aggravation. They're owned by conglomerates that have issues before the government, and they've been told no controversy, please. And I mean, what we're really seeing here is, unless you have an owner, which is very rare, that has no interest before the government, you're going to not get an ability to really sort of be vehemently critical of the president. I mean, we're actually, funnily enough, Laureen Powell Jobs, who owns The Atlantic, has been able to be an amazingly steadfast backer of The Atlantic, which is, writes whatever it wants, because she really is, she's one of the world's richest women, and she doesn't have any business before the government. I mean, my passionate hope is that she buys the Washington Post from Jeff Bezos and becomes, the next Katharine Graham, who of course stood behind the Watergate heroes, Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward. So, the New York Times, is thank God for the New York Times, because, the Sulzberger family does not have other interests before the government. So they're able to keep on, publishing in terms of its, it's without fear or favor editorial attitude. But there are fewer and fewer who have that freedom. So the question is, it's very interesting. Have we reached a turning point now? I mean, the entertainment world is outraged. There's a lot of powerful people in that world, as opposed to simply the quote, the press, the media world. The entertainment world is in an absolute uproar about both the Stephen Colbert business and now this absolutely, obvious piece of censoring of Jimmy Kimmel. So there's a lot of powerful, very wealthy, very dominant people there. So let's see whether or not that has some influence. And I think, that there is a lot of the MAGA crowd who don't like this much either. So we might have found a wedge that can be sort of drawn here that we didn't have before. But how many times have we said that? Many times.